The Economic Times welcomes you to the first edition of ReModel in India, which will focus on NPA management and asset reconstruction. The best indicator for the health of the banking industry in a country is its level of NPAs, as it reflects their performance. However, in recent years, NPAs have become a major concern for the Indian economy. In the banking system, high level of NPAs can be a serious drag on their overall performance due to diversion of its major management and financial resources towards the recovery of NPAs. The Economic Times has always believed that a healthy financial sector is very important for our economy's stability, and hence, through this summit, ReModel in India, we aim to encourage a meaningful dialogue within the relevant stakeholders, and today, through the day, we will witness a series of discussions among industry stalwarts, deliberating on the reasons for the rising number of NPAs while arriving upon solutions that can help them. I hope you all have a very insightful day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandhya, for introducing us to the ReModel in India initiative. I would now like to invite on stage Honorable Mr. R. Gandhi, Deputy Governor, Reserve Bank of India, to share his insights on the topic today.
Indeed, a great pleasure for me to be present here and interact with all of you on the important issue of management of non-performing assets in India. If you look a little far back, the asset quality of the Indian banking system was not like this. It had actually been improving significantly since the implementation of reforms in the banking sector and introduction of the prudential norms, enactment of Securitization and Reconstruction and Financial Assets and Enforcement of Security Interest Act in 2002, credit information companies, etc. The gross NPA ratio steadily declined from 15.7% in 1996-97 to 2.36% in 2010-11. However, the amount of non-performing assets witnessed a spurt subsequently, and as on March 2015, as we all know, it was at 4.62% of the gross advances of the banks in comparison with 2.35% of the gross advances as on March 2011. The growth in NPAs was much higher than the growth in advances during these last 4 years. The purpose of creation of SARCs was to resolve NPAs of banking system by using their expertise. Reserve Bank expects that these recommendations of the committee, when implemented, would result in significant improvement in the bankruptcy framework of the country and enable banks, SARCs, to resolve their stressed assets in an effective manner. To conclude, I am sure that with the efforts of the government in bringing in a strong bankruptcy framework and various regulatory initiatives being taken by the Reserve Bank of India, the effectiveness of SARCs would improve to a great extent. At the same time, I hope that the market participants iron out the frictions which are best resolved among themselves without looking for regulatory solutions to such issues. Thank you very much.
I'd now like to invite on stage Mr. Birendra Kumar, Chairman, Association of ARCs in India, and MD and CEO, IARC, to come and present an overview of ARCs.
At the outset, I must compliment Economic Times Edge for organizing this summit on a subject which is of contemporary relevance to the Indian economy, and also giving me an opportunity to present before you an overview of the functioning of ARCs ever since they came into being. The ARCs over the years have learned from their initial experiences of successes, setbacks, and failures, and have also been gearing themselves for facing the future challenges, diversified challenges which are before them on account of the greater expectation from the regulatory system, from the government, and from the banking system that they would play a role of asset reconstruction rather than confining themselves to asset resolution. I am optimistic. We are making effort day in and day out. Their initial setback, they will continue to do that, but we'll have to live with it. So the collaborative culture and all stakeholders coming together with the regulatory oversight and support from the government regulator will go a long way in making the ARCs come up to the expectations of the entire financial community and fulfilling their role of being a real asset reconstruction company. Thank you so much.
We now begin our first panel discussion, which entails challenges in turnaround of stressed assets. And through this discussion, we would like to explore regulatory limitations in unlocking the potential of NPAs, as well as the valuation asymmetry in NPA sales. I'd like to start by introducing our moderator for the panel, Mr. Nikhil Shah, Managing Director, Alvarez & Marsal.
I'm going to start with addressing a few questions towards the bankers here. How are banks addressing the stress in their portfolios, and what is their strategy going forward?
I am actually in this stressed asset management only for the last 2 weeks, so probably I will learn more from what my friends are saying. But from what I have seen during the course of my work in the bank, service in the bank across various geographies, I have understood that there are some basic fundamental problems connected with the way we deliver credit, we appraise credit. And after I came to this department also, I have seen certain pattern in which the advances go bad, and then the recovery. So this chase of borrower by the banks could be one of the major reasons for the stress that we are seeing.
Mr. Sethi, how are you at Union Bank seeing the stress in the system right now in particular, and what is the strategy that you're employing to address the situation?
First is the selection of the borrower. That by itself is very vital. And having a spread of branches around 4,000 plus, I think that is where for all the banks, maybe this is also one of the crucial issue, where you have a staff which is having 1 or 2 years of experience, because the elder generation, I would use a word, those have retired in good numbers. So one big problem for mainly public sector bank is not having that very equipped staff member who can handle the advances properly. But where we are, we have to move forward from there. So one is this issue, but along with that, then to assist them how the things can take care. You can provide them a good training, how to pick up a good borrower, but internally then you have a good system of audit. Whereas the assets are being scrutinized, whether there is adequate follow-up or not, another way of doing it right. Then thirdly, there is a process of internally credit process audit. Whatsoever documents are obtained, securities are to be executed, have they been done properly or not before disbursement of the advances? That also reduces the stress.
Moving on to the ARCs, given the volume of stressed assets in the system, ARCs should be well positioned to address this opportunity. What are the challenges that you're facing?
In my opinion, the biggest challenge our country is facing the macro environment. The macro environment in the country for last couple of years have been very challenging. If I can say so, since 2008, we have been having very macro environment which is extremely challenging, whether it is for bankers, whether it is for industrialists, whether it is for equity investors. And look at sectors, whether it is steel sector, whether it is power sector, whether it is infra sector, whether it is textile sector, whether it is hotel industries. Everywhere we have seen macro environment has been very challenging. And these are the sectors where maximum money has been borrowed, maximum money has been lent by the banking companies. So in my opinion, macro environment needs to improve.
Sibi, what are the challenges that Edelweiss is facing?
The challenges what was articulated at the beginning, I think we should focus a few of them. Number one is debt aggregation, very nicely said by Mr. Birendra Kumar. If we have to be in the sweet spot today, we should have the debt aggregated at one ARC That is one area we have been discussing with the banks. We have been suggesting to the regulator that they should do something on this. If an ARC has acquired, say, at least say 40% of an asset, why don't you give a first right of refusal to that ARC? Because consortium banking in all these failed cases, consortium banking has not worked. So there's no point in having a consortium of ARCs. I would think it has to be with one ARC. Whoever is that. And if there is a focus on revival, I think it would be much easier to do, because if one ARC has the entire loan with that, the promoter will definitely come on table.
Let me ask you a question that I think has been playing on a lot of people's minds here. How many of the borrowers, in your opinion, on a portfolio basis, are cooperative versus uncooperative?
80-20. 80 are cooperative, 20 are.
So let's not give the borrowers or promoters a bad
You
name.
can also be had maybe this.
Is that your experience, Dr. Vedin?
I am seeing a lot of uncooperative borrowers, but I can't say a percentage as of now, because when stress happens, okay, there is some very conscious efforts for reviving it, but once it is seen that it is difficult, then he becomes very uncooperative. Uncooperative means you can't even go and sometimes see the stock and the security values of 400 crore, 500 crore and all on one day, and after it has turned NPA, and when it is going to be declared as NPA, and then recovery is going to start and all, that 400 to 500 crore worth of security all of a sudden becomes nil.
Which leads me to the next question, actually. In terms of if you have a situation where you have, let's say, 1,000 crores of exposure to a particular borrower, and you find that it's based on a certain stock, inventory, receivable position, and then you've decided as a consortium that you would like to sell it, what would you ascribe the value? How would you ascribe the value in that situation?
I think I will supplement his point. Having a charge on book debt and stocks is only hypothetical. Selling it or being with the so many debtors to get recovery or getting them as a party to the suit, it doesn't yield any result. That is why invariably I think if any asset is being sold, invariably it's the tangible asset, like say fixed assets which are being sold, either mortgage of property or machineries. But financing close to 75% is working capital. So where the recovery for that will come, that is where the issue comes. So,
what is the methodology that you use to evaluate the position's value, though?
see, one asset if I have financed it 10 years before, one is that if it is a fixed asset, certainly depreciation wise, that is one part of the thing. But where is a fixed asset like land and building, there may be appreciation of the value also. So before putting it to ARC or even by going for OTS, the property is valued again. And invariably we take 3 years old valuation, still we may hold good, but when it is coming to a selling or going to the OTS, we get that valuation done again. So you are close to the fair value. Now within that you have a fair value as well as a distress value. If the fair value you are going to get, it's behind imagination because you are auctioning it. So invariably if something is coming close to the distress value, banks are reasonably comfortable to that.
Sibi, Sanjay, I wanted to ask you, how has your experience been in terms of valuation discussions with the banks, and where do you see the gap lying? And I know that there's been a long movement in the last 12 months on this front.
The upfront is increased from 5% to 15%. The asset value doesn't come down. But one thing what you have to see is, as he himself analyzed, and my own experience is, if you go in the enforcement route, DRT takes its own time of 4-5 years, you get 25%. But upfront you are getting 15%. And you are 85% beneficiary of the balance recovery. That is the call a bank has to take. You are a partner, you are a partnership with an ARC in a 85-15 ratio. If the company revives, instead of 25, you will get 60, even 100%. And revival cases, you can expect even more than 100% if you right price it. We have to work together to maximize our recoveries. That's why the scheme of 85 security receipts system has come in India. Perhaps it's a unique system in the whole world. Security receipts, you will benefit from the recovery by the ARC. So upfront 15% against a 25% in 4 years, it's a significant amount what you are getting. So you need to support the bank. Again, one more point I just wanted to mention was that about the working capital. We are, as I mentioned, we are revival focused. But for revival, you need capital. You need working capital particularly. We can say fund-based working capital to some extent we can fund. We have arms to fund that. But non-fund based working capital, which only a bank can give, I mean, unless that is given, revival is going to be slow.
Now that your focus is on reviving assets, how have you gone about evaluating what assets you would like to acquire, and what are the revival strategies that you've used in these assets?
The revival strategy valuation can be higher because if the unit is potentially viable, valuations can be a little higher provided all banks together they sell. See, the problem if they don't sell it together is the time value. The time value is lost. If I have to spend 15 to 18 months to aggregate the debt, I mean, value is lost there. That's why if all banks put together a viable, potentially viable unit can be sold, even banks can get a better price. Then otherwise, what is happening is ARC's value in the worst case scenario of asset value, and in how many years you can, in the worst case scenario. Because in many cases, we have seen, in many cases, viability in such a way, it's a 0 and 1 game. If you win, it's a great win. That's why our return expectation is high because we are in that risky business. What needs to be done is that, revival capability or turnaround capability, including your firm is very good at that. So we are working together with such institutions for turnaround capabilities. So valuation can be better in that scenario. Otherwise, it's the asset value discounted in the worst case scenario. That could be the price.
We have limited time left. I wanted to leave it with this question. How has the bank's experience been with partnering with the ARCs? Because really you are in it together actually in terms of the outcome. And in particular, how are the redemption rates in the SRs?
we have to work as a team. I think that's the only solution. Otherwise it doesn't. Because waiting for security receipts to realize if it is going 3 to 5 years, which certainly will be 3 years, I can understand it's a reasonable time. But if it is going more, then for that holding period, again, management fees is to be paid 1 point.
Right.
That 15% taken up front will get wiped off, if not in 3 years, in 5 years. So this is one of the issues with the bank. You are having got a SR by itself does not give you a big lottery. Ultimately, that is also subject to MTM. Every 6 months that NAV is to be taken, and if value is reducing, again I have to provide. So my selling of assets should be attractive to a bank in the sense, okay, even after a period of 3 to 5 years, there should be something positive coming. So far the case is what my personal experience says is, we have not been able to get too many of the assets restructured or sold at a very high value versus the SR value itself. Right. So if it starts coming to that level, I think then, but their point is equally well, all the banks aggregation wise, are they coming together to provide them that enabling environment? I think working as a team will find some solutions.
Is that your experience, Sanjay?
No, I would give certain, data points. Being the oldest ARC, we have been acquiring assets since 2003. And as Mr. Brinder Kumar pointed out very clearly, first phase, which was 2003 to, I will say, 2009-10. It was a phase where a lot of assets were sold and macro environment was very positive. So we have seen during that phase, SR redemption was very high. After that, banks have virtually stopped selling assets till FY13. And in last 2 years, as of now, the asset under management is close to 48,000 crore rupees. And almost 80% of the asset under management has been acquired in last 2 financial years. Given the very challenging macro environment and other challenges which ARC industry as well as banking industry is facing, to expect miracle to happen overnight, I think it is unreasonable from ARCs. But my sense is we should be able to redeem 100% of SRs. You can say we are slightly conservative. In some of the cases, there might be losses to the SR holders. In some of the cases, there will be gains. So on an average, that is our expectation that we would be able to redeem 100% of SRs. Once macro environment improves, I think things will improve. We have been working on revival or restructuring of cases, including change of management. And we have seen good signs, and hopefully things will improve for better.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Asset reconstruction and NPA management are of vital importance, and of course you already know this, for countries' banking systems, and in the long run, the stability of a country's financial system and its contribution to economic growth. The Swedish banking system of today might have been tackled differently. First, because Swedish banking sector is bigger today. Our banks' domestic and foreign assets account to 4 times our GDP. Second, because many of the parameters that contributed to our banking crisis in the 90s, such as a high inflation, are no longer valid. And third, each banking crisis has its own features and need to be handled thereafter. So what we've done in recent years, for example, first we have introduced quantitative liquidity requirements for larger financial institutions to ensure that credit institutions and investment firms to a greater extent can handle their own liquidity without government support, at least during limited times of market stress. Second, Sweden has established a floor for banks' risk weights on their mortgages, risk weights which are used to calculate the capital requirement each mortgage generates. Third, we've also introduced a loan-to-value cap to prevent unsound lending practices. And the recommendation is that commercial banks that borrowing would not exceed 85% of market price. Sweden and India are part of a globalized financial system, and we are all vulnerable to external and domestic shocks. Crises, of course, will develop from time to time, and history has taught us there are many times preceded by lending booms. And to prevent a lending boom to burst into a crisis, a good regulatory framework is key. Sweden has undertaken a number of measures to strengthen its framework, and we will stand much stronger today than we did in the 90s. Thank you so much.
The key takeaways are meant for the banks who have to sell their stressed assets to asset reconstruction companies, the problems in selling such assets, and expectations of the banks, and the acquisition of such assets by asset reconstruction, ARCs.